By this time, it was pretty clear the series wasn't going to survive. Ratings were down, the star was done with the whole idea, and the plots had taken on a cookie-cutter similarity. Today's episode is just another cookie.
Tuesday, 11:15 p.m. If you know anything about Chicago politics, you'll understand why a 63-year-old ward captain was braving the ungentle hour and the less gentle streets. You see, Ward Captain Leo J. Ramutka was returning home from a wake, and off Wiedersehen to a loyal registered voter he knew would one day meet him in that great polling station in the sky. What Ward Captain Ramutka failed to foresee was just how soon that meeting would be. No!
I'm not that familiar with Chicago politics, but I assume a ward captain is the head of some part of the city. Or maybe I should say was. We have yet another new police captain on the scene.
Captain Vernon W. Rausch. To a reporter, he was the Edward R. Murrow of homicide. His list of credits reached back into the mid-50s in the infamous Mercer Dobrans murders. He was a good cop, allegedly great. So what do you say to a living legend? Hi there.
The living legend appears to be the only police captain in the entire city who isn't familiar with Carl Kolchak. No, Carl will not have the good sense to use that to his advantage.
Yes, Carl? An arrow.
An arrow? Looks like a V2.
On the face of it, a crude, atavistic device, a retrogression, one might suppose, but you consider this, if you will.
Yes, sure.
Good. A missile this size can be as deadly as it is silent. Recall, if you would, its extensive use by British commandos throughout the Second World War.
Uh-oh, this could be trouble. This captain uses big words. Kolchak is at a definite disadvantage. He called Ramutka a ward healer. Strictly speaking, that just means someone who goes out knocking on doors and canvassing areas to drum up votes for a favored candidate. The first time it appeared in print was 1888, but after that it started taking on some negative connotations. It came to suggest a yes man, a fawning toady who will scarf up any crumb the big shot throws on the floor for him to grovel for. How much of that meaning the term carries is variable by region, but honestly, it's not something I'd want to be known for in any region.
You think you know who did it, don't you?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And no.
Huh?
As you well know, Carl, Leo Ramutka was a ward healer, and like any human being in public life, he was prone to antagonism. They collect, like river silt.
Correction? Kolchak is at a major disadvantage. This guy is highly educated.
Think of Greater Chicago. 6 million personalities pressed together in a configuration as complex and as dynamically rigorous as it is alienating.
As I said, he's highly educated. Kolchak isn't.
6 million sets of needs, wants, desires, cries in the night. Want me. I want you. Understand me. I am a person.
Looks like he's also a frustrated poet, or he writes soap opera dialogue on the side.
Disintegration of the family, unbridled vertical mobility, a pressure cooker of human disappointments. Carl, understand the pathetic atomized personality, and, well, sooner or later he or she erupts.
One area where he's thoroughly educated is psychology. Out of all that, Carl finally managed to catch a single one-syllable word.
She. You said she. You think it's a woman?
Well, I like to call him or her Mr. X.
Mr. X? What, Mr. X? What, John Doe?
Yeah, there's a lot more professional than calling him a nut or a freak or something like that. No, you've got to respect people's feelings, Carl.
Yes.
Sure. Like that person respected the ward captain's feelings. That speech was a full minute long, and as I said, with monumental, almost superhuman effort, Kolchak understood one word. John Dainer is an old friend of the channel. Back when I watched TV a lot, I was always happy when I saw him on the screen. He was primarily a character actor, but he took a few regular jobs. One of my favorites was on a short-lived show called The New Temperatures Rising. The Old Temperatures Rising was a failed sitcom that was so bad it doesn't even have an IMDb page. The revamp started Cleavon Little and didn't do much better. I've pointed out before that you can only call a show the new whatever for so long, and then it just becomes the whatever. Anyway, John Dainer played a muck-a-muck doctor who was as racist as he was incompetent. For me, he pretty well made this show. You expected Cleavon Little to be funny, but this stuffed shirt cracking so many jokes, most of them unintentional, was the Easter egg. He'll spend the bulk of this episode talking circles around Kolchak.
The next night, 10:20 p.m. If Leo Ramutka's popularity, or lack of it, was born of ballots and political patronage, Rolf Danvers got his more directly. His was the allure of ready cash and the deeds to several square blocks of prime Chicago real estate. However, within seconds, the only real estate that would matter to Rolf Danvers would be a small plot he owned in a memorial park near Old Town.
Looks like the Black Knight is on the loose. Somebody call Graham Chapman, quick. So far, the police can't even figure out what the weapon was because who expects a full-size lance in 20th century Chicago?
Negative. Last night's statement is no longer functionally descriptive. And negative is also appropriate to the second part of the second question you asked. There is no, I repeat, no reason to believe that the death of two prominent men...
You know that there's a rumor going around the press room.
Homicide is a very democratic institution. One more question.
Then allow me to rephrase that, Captain.
Negative.
I guess it doesn't matter what the question was since he's not going to answer anyway.
One more question.
Captain, regarding the death of Ward Captain Ramutka, it has been rumored among the press that you're combing the 14th precinct looking for a woman disguising herself as a British commando?
What do you have to say about that, Captain? Any explanation? Captain?
That expression is one of the many things that made John Dainer famous. He knows where that came from.
Carl, I see you're making yourself at home. Coffee? Well, I imagine you're here by way of journalistic endeavor, right?
Right. He'd like to ask you a few things, too. But may we keep the words and the answers to 2 syllables or less?
Yes. As a matter of fact, those murders, remember?
You've got a quick wit, Carl. I like that. Shows a proclivity to cope.
Yeah, well, thank you, Captain.
Don't mention it. Now, if I read your body language correctly, you want to ask me what killed Ralph Danvers.
Right.
He was stabbed.
Stabbed?
You know.
Yes, of course, but stabbed by what?
Fair question. Something round and sharp. I'd say a structural facsimile to an ice pick.
All that means is it's round, not flat like a knife. He's not about to say it like that. He's having fun jerking Carl around. After that little stunt out in the hall, you can't blame him.
Ice pick. Huh?
There is, however, one disconcerting wrinkle to that premise. This particular instrument would have to have a 3-inch diameter.
Then it isn't an ice pick.
All right. I'll buy that.
Oh, Captain, you may feel like adding this.
Hail, Prince of the Obvious.
He says, if you ask me a direct question, I'll see what I can do.
What killed him?
Society. Well, in a manner of speaking, naturally.
Well, Captain, in a manner of speaking, 2 gentlemen are dead of 2 very bizarre means. An oversized arrow and an obese ice pick. Now, I cannot minimize the concern that I have that these murders are somehow interrelated, if for no other reason than that you're handling the investigations of both.
Ah, that last one is an excellent point. Excellent point.
We've had multiple captains who just yelled at him, told him no, threatened him, and otherwise tried to bully Kolchak into sitting down and shutting up, and not one of them was successful. Captain Rausch takes a different approach. He'll answer the questions, but his answers will be way up in the stratosphere where Carl can't reach them. He's the undisputed master of talking in circles.
Yeah, but how about the first one, huh? That the murders are intertwined, interlocked?
Do you know there were 1/7 as many ice pick killings last year as there were in 1942?
1942?
Technology, Carl. Ice comes in cubes these days. Ready-made. you see?
I get what he means, though considering the way these men were killed, I don't think his dissertation about technology necessarily applies.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me that there were ice cubes at the scenes of both murders?
Oh, not at all.
Well, then what?
Not at all, Carl. Look, all right. Perhaps we can approach this a little less directly.
Less directly.
I suppose he could try to get there by way of Hong Kong. I think our captain is almost there already. As we know, I do like the show overall, but I don't really like Carl. So watching this guy yank him around like a kite in a high wind is most enjoyable.
Thursday, 2:12 p.m. Extricating myself from Captain Vernon W. Rausch cost me 2 hours of precious time, wherein I learned that the only thing more maddening than certain cops was certain educated cops. I was in the mood for some fast, straight answers, so I headed for the straight arrow himself, Pop Stensvold.
Pop can tell him what kind of arrow it is, after Kolchak fulfills his end of the agreement they have.
All right. Chapter 3. In the 11th summer of my life...
You don't know, right? Okay. Well, if you don't know, you don't know. Harry Truman said that in 1949.
Will Harry really say that?
Old Harry really said it.
All right, I do know.
Uh-huh.
Come from a crossbow. Middle Ages.
And who might have one of them and the knowledge to shoot someone with it?
Maybe suppose I want a crossbow.
Use your head, will you, Carl? You see the size of that arrow?
Yeah.
It'd take a winch to cock the mechanism. That 300-pound of pressure at least.
I don't care about that. I want one.
Ah, no, you don't.
Yes, I do. Now, where do I get one?
All right, I tell you what you do. You walk out that door.
Yeah.
You get in your car.
Yeah.
And you start driving.
Huh?
And when you come to the 14th century, ask your social worker.
And by the way, you're not getting out of here with that information until you keep your part of the bargain.
As you may recall in our last chapter, Cousin Rusty and me was spending our 11th summer in Green Lake, Wisconsin.
Yeah, he agreed to collaborate with Pop on his autobiography. He never did learn to stop making impulsive promises.
Thursday, 11:59 p.m. There was a saying amongst the hallowed data banks of industry that when Brewster Hawking slept, so did KALC, and an acronym for the Canadian American Leisure Corporation.
Canada starts with a C, not a K.
In 12 short years, CALC, C-A-L-C, and Hawking had risen from a humble catering truck company to the world's 14th fastest rising conglomerate.
That's better. Good spelling will take you far in life.
Charles? Charles, stop that blasted clanking. What is this?
Whatever it is, I suggest you get out of that bed and get far away from it.
Charles? Charles! No, please, for the Lord's sake, don't. Take anything you want.
Move, idiot! I don't know if he still thinks it's his man Charles playing a prank or if he's just that clueless, but it won't matter in a few seconds.
Give you money.
At least he left a clue. The police won't have any idea what it means, but give him credit for trying.
Don't just stand there, you idiot! Help me!
What does that mix 1 century is that, and you're destroying continuity, all of it?
You're telling me about continuity? Me?
That's genuine Provençal, 13th century.
Provençal, Provençal. That thing is blue. That thing is black. I will not tolerate a black and blue cocktail lounge. Unless someone has decided to rename the Camelot Bar the Brews Room.
She has a point. She's Minerva Musso, the city's premier interior decorator. He's Mendel Boggs, curator of the Heidecker Museum, and a man who's very upset that the owners of the place want to turn it into a disco bar. Hence Minerva's concerns about black and blue and stuff like that. Carl is here seeking information about the arrow.
Now, our sound engineer will be arriving today, and you will let him in this time. And you will tell him for me that the stereo components will go in here.
Inside getting a violence? I protest. I will protest.
You do that. And while you're protesting to whomever you protest, I will be seeing about your removal to whomever removes custodial help.
My title is curator.
Have a nice day, Bugsy.
Why do so many people think that when they reach the top of their game, it gives them license to abuse others? We're going to learn that all three men who were killed have some connection with this museum and the big plans for it. Minerva hasn't put that together, so she's still enjoying being a jerk.
What's happening around here?
I thought you were here to write it up.
Me? No.
The Grand March of Progress, how some soda pop company is transforming all this into the Camelot discotheque. May they all rot in Camelot.
It's gonna cost you your job, huh?
Unless I learn how to be a bartender or operate a strobe light. Oh, well, one must have faith, hope. They all did,
Who's they?
The Knights of Yore.
Knights of my? Oh, he means yore like Y-O-R-E, an old word for the distant past. I knew that.
The arrow.
Bolt. Crossbow arrow is called a bolt. Bolt. Well, if this was focused properly, I might be able to make an intelligent comment.
Well,
it has medieval styling. It's probably a replica.
Considering what it did, it's a really good replica then.
But, what happened to the arrows in here?
No, attrition over the years. High school field trips. Little thieves, nasty gum-chewing ferrets. Oh, please don't touch.
Let me ask you, would a bolt like this fit on a crossbow like that?
Well, bows are built to shoot bolts, aren't they? I'm very busy. If you'll excuse me, Mr.
Kolchak.
Yeah, whatever.
Today must be take your attitude to work day. Hans Conried was a legend in his own lifetime. From his earliest days in radio, that voice and his quick comebacks carried him to stardom and kept him there. He spent a lot of time on both the large and small screens in addition to all the voice work he did. He famously provided the voice and modeled for the rotoscoping of Captain Hook in Disney's Peter Pan, but his favorite voice job was Snidely Whiplash in the Dudley Do-Right cartoons, because it was almost required that he overact to his heart's content. Right around the time that this appeared, he suffered a mild stroke that slowed him down a lot. He lost a battle with heart disease in 1982. You get the feeling his character is losing his battle with the disco era, too.
Hey there. Real good to see you again, Lester.
Real good to see you too, man. What's up? I don't know you.
Bet you know him.
Oh, yeah. Used to be some kind of federal employee, didn't he?
Yeah, president. He made out pretty good, too.
Right, that's right.
Brewster Hawking checked in there last night, didn't he? Didn't he? Huh? Hey? That's...
A 20 was worth a lot more in 1974. Today, he'd need at least two of them.
What hit him?
That, my friend, is a $64 question around here. Even the big medical minds are stuck.
Yeah?
If I had to say, I'd say it was stomped on by a 1,000-pound football shoe.
Or a mace.
Mace comes a little can. It doesn't weigh anything.
Don't even try, Kolchak. It's pointless. His next step is to bluff his way into squeezing some information out of Charles, the butler who wasn't in the suit of armor.
Dear Carl, stop. Please come to Chicago as soon as possible. Stop. Need to talk to you in person. Stop. Fraternally yours, Hawk.
Hawk.
Odd, isn't it? In my 10 years with Mr. Hawking, I never heard him referred to as Hawk.
Well...
As a matter of fact, I don't recall him mentioning your name either.
That was back in our wild college days. He quit going by it long before he met you.
What happened to this?
Well, the police theorize that the murderer smashed it to prevent Mr. Hawking from calling for help.
Uh-huh. Of course, certainly. Yeah, that's why the phones on the nightstand there weren't smashed, huh?
Maybe the killer knew those aren't connected. They're just for show to remind him how rich he is.
Was he worried about anything?
Well, he was somewhat concerned about a class action suit against his diet drink subsidiary. A man in Michigan was claiming that the sugar substitute was causing vertigo and excess hair loss.
Uh-huh.
That was mean, Carl. He didn't know Hawking owned soft drink companies. Back at the office, some finagling will tell him it takes 420 pounds of pressure to crush a phone, and medieval knights in full armor and weaponry weighed well over that. He figures some guy is running around in armor killing people, and he thinks he knows who.
So Brewster Hawking, last night's victim, owns a soda pop conglomerate, and they recently acquired Heidecker Wine Importers and the Heidecker Museum.
Carl, I didn't understand anything you just said.
Don't worry about it, Tony. You will as soon as I get through talking with Minerva Musso.
Minerva Musso.
The interior decorator? You?
Yes. We're thinking of brightening up the office. You are going to be replaced by a Boston Fern, and you a Snapdragon.
It's starting to come together. Hawking bought the museum with the intention of turning it into a disco. The real estate guy was handling a deal to expand the place onto the next lot. Our ward man was facilitating the zoning and all the rest. Everybody this nut has killed has had some connection to this project. And Carl knows a very angry man who's surrounded by several suits of armor. He's off to see what Minerva knows about it.
Now, you have been with enough ski instructors to realize they're always in a hurry. It must be something terribly Freudian and terribly boring.
Hello?
Oh, just a moment, dear. A strange man has just walked into my boudoir.
She doesn't seem all that concerned, which I find concerning.
Robbery or rape?
What?
No, I'm asking him, robbery or rape. He hasn't said.
Neither one, so don't get excited.
Oh, he says I shouldn't get excited. Depressing little man.
I wonder which she was hoping for. He identifies himself and goes through a convoluted process of convincing her that he's not here to ask her about rumors regarding David Bowie.
I'm not here about David Bowie, actually. I'm here about the Heidecker Museum.
Yuck. That junkyard? If it wasn't for being audited last year, no amount of money could get me to take the job.
Specifically, he wants to know more about Mendel Boggs.
With diligence, he might make village idiot. Do you know that he talks to those iron things?
Really?
Those nights, yes.
What does he say?
Well, poetry. He spouts that doggerel of his. I came in one morning, and he was standing there in front of a mirror, waving a pike and frothing about cleaving things in twain, whatever that means.
More of the Knights of your stuff. It's possible he's been in this place a little too long.
Did you hear that? Huh. You got bad pipes or something?
I beg your pardon.
Well, I mean, is your dishwasher broken or...
Oh, who knows? Friday night, party night.
What is that noise?
He shoves Minerva into the bathroom and tells her to lock the door. He'll grab a nearby dresser and try to barricade this door. For all the good it does him. At least he just has a headache. It's much worse for Minerva, as if that comes as a surprise.
It's enough, John. Thank you. Well, Carl. Where's the pain? The base of the skull? I'll tell you what, just rub back here. Right back here. Just loosen up the trapezius muscle.
Trapezius?
Captain Rausch doesn't believe Carl's story about a knight in armor.
I suppose this creature came squealing to you that I was arguing with that wretched woman, eh? That I'd uttered epithets against her.
I'm sorry, but they fried my eyeballs.
Are you sure you don't want an attorney?
For what? To hold my pants while I change into that? This is preposterous.
Carl is 100% certain that was the suit of armor he saw, but it doesn't even remotely fit Mr. Boggs, and there aren't any other candidates nearby. Maybe it walked around by itself?
Well, there's no blood on the axe, the lance, and the mace. It's been wiped or clean lately.
Did you clean these lately? I don't mean with polish. You see, we found that in Miss Musso's murder, the killer wiped the weapon off on a silk pillowcase and with Mr. Danvers on a piece of his sport jacket.
You mean you actually did some work in between yoga classes and book reviews?
Nice going, Carl. You created enough of a distraction that nobody will notice Boggs didn't answer. Carl needs to get some information about the guy who owned that suit, but Boggs isn't talking. He'll have to find it somewhere else.
Hello. My name's Carl Kolchak. I'd like some information about coats of arms.
Kolchak, that's an old and revered Russian name, isn't it?
Oh, well, no, actually, no, it's Polish.
Polish? Oh, yes, of course. Kolchak. Oh, an ancient lineage there. You know, you must be descended from Archbishop Kolchak of Krakow, who defended the church from the Magyar onslaught.
Really?
Isn't it amazing that he has all that info right there on the tip of his tongue? Kolchak wants to ask about the armor, but our man is in the business of selling coats of arms, so he'll need to buy one if he wants any answers.
$12 for the pine plaque.
$12, huh? Listen, the shield I saw was red, with a black lion sitting on top of it, and then there was a diagonal stripe of black down across it.
Now, we call that the lion rampant and the black bend sinister.
Uh-huh.
Now, what you're describing is the heraldic design of the infamous Mettencourt family of Burgundy.
Infamous?
Oh, bad people.
I'm not sure if that's from a calendar or a cheap picture book, but if they can get $12 a page for them, they're doing all right. Until somebody discovers the scam, but we won't get to see that.
The last of the line, Guy de Mettencourt, was particularly a pig, even by today's standards. He stayed behind in Burgundy. He didn't go to the Crusades. He amassed a fortune. He's slaying even women and children.
Here we are. Of course, when we mail it to you, it will have Kolchak emblazoned beneath, hand-lettered by one of our artists.
Does that mean him or you? These two were both experienced character actors. Robert M. Hart became well known playing bad guys, scam artists like this one, and the like. His partner in con artistry is Jeff Donnell or Donnell, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. And yes, I said Jeff. Her birth name was Jean, but as a kid, she was such a fan of the Mutt and Jeff comic strip, she started calling herself Jeff, and it stuck. She's best known for a stretch on General Hospital in the 70s and 80s. But right now, Carl wants to know more about Monsieur Mettencourt. Roger will tell him, if he buys a $60 walnut frame for the coat of arms.
Oh, his family had the finest vineyards in Burgundy, Chateau Mettencourt. But Guy himself hated human pleasures. He became a pariah in his own time.
Yeah, I've known a few like that myself. So what do you mean he hated all human pleasures?
Oh, he consorted with dabblers in the black arts. He became legendary for his invincibility and his unchivalrous acts.
He came to hate anything that made people happy, whether music, laughter, good food. He was out to avoid anything that smacked of enjoyment, such as a disco.
Here we are, like here.
Oh, yeah.
Now, after he had killed a foe, it was his custom to wipe the blood from his weapon on the flying colors of the dead foe as a gesture of contempt.
Well, what are flying colors?
Oh, silk scarf, a bright piece of clothing.
How about a pillowcase or a sport jacket?
I beg your pardon?
Yeah.
This is getting weirder and weirder, but you'd think Kolchak would be used to that by now. There's even a drawing of Mettencourt in that book.
There he is, the Black Knight.
He's explaining it to Tony. Mettencourt had a necromancer make him some special armor that made him invincible.
Now, the armor and the battle axe are both down at the museum. The whole story is there. Now, Pope Gregory blessed that battle axe and asked a knight of Strasbourg to do battle with Mettencourt. Now, the holy axe was the only thing that could pierce Mettencourt's armor, and it did. Mettencourt died, but he swore with his last breath that music and human gaiety would never be permitted around his resting place.
Everyone he's killed is connected with the plan to turn the museum into a disco. Carl understands that nobody believes his story, so as usual, he'll have to do it himself. He breaks into the Heidecker Museum and heads for the battle axe. If he can get pictures of this thing moving by itself, Tony probably still won't believe him, and neither will Roush. Pull it out and throw it back at him, as if Kolchak has the arm strength to do either of those things. Here he comes, and he has a sword now. It's mind-boggling to me that Carl Kolchak is the only person this thing has come after who has the good sense to run. More or less. He's trying to get away. That's something different. So's this. Ooh, he knows what that is, and whether Kolchak can lift it or not, he's afraid of it. That's it. One glancing hit to the side and he's done. All of a sudden our show seems to like anticlimaxes. Pardon my bluntness, but that was boring. Little to nothing happened and he took down the big bad almost by accident. Kolchak winds up buried under a pile of armor and a battle axe as big as he is.
A blessed battle axe and an iron suit full of thin air. I knew I'd have a lot of explaining to do to the owners of the Heidecker Museum, to Captain Vernon Roush, and of course to my own beloved bureau chief, A. Vincenzo. There wouldn't be much I could tell them, except what I'll tell you. It all really happened.
I knew the writers couldn't come up with an interesting way to end the episode, so they had me say something meaningless to fill the time. Yes. That really happened. It's plain to see that we knew we were getting canceled, so we stopped caring. Turn in a script, collect the paycheck, send resumes out, lather, rinse, repeat. The show formula is in a template, fill in the blanks. Protagonist, Kolchak. Antagonist, something supernatural. Solution, magic countermeasures. They probably could have used refrigerator poetry magnets to write the next episode. It's gotten sloppy. And this episode has one truly glaring example, Mendel Boggs. It should be obvious that when he talks to the armor, he's giving it instructions in whom to kill next, and we never mentioned it, much less resolved it. Even after Minerva dropped that huge clue on us, the story never followed up. That's a plot hole you could drive Mars through. And this thing went to air. It makes me wonder what's in those resumes I mentioned, because if they sent out a resume that said, I wrote this episode for this show, the exec would probably say, he wants to do the same thing for me? Oh, goody. Next. I'm not familiar. On this screen, don't stumble, you twit. Call Graham Chapman or jeez, David, don't even try. Come on, the pressure to trush. Somewhat. Carl understands. Just of this move. Yeah, boy, that's an awkward sentence. Why do I do this to myself?